we'll start with invocation. I don't believe, is Reverend Porter here? Would you please lead us in invocation, and Commissioner Willis will follow with the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this day and for the many blessings you give us. Thank you for the privilege and the honor to live in such beautiful place. Father, we ask you to watch over our representatives tonight as they secure our life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. Help us to love each other more and to do the things that you want us to do. Guide and direct our paths. Keep us safe and help us to be prosperous in all that we do. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Tumulty,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Willis,
here.
Vice Mayor Williams,
Here.
Mayor Malik.
Here. All right, and we have start off with a special presentation, and we have Kim McDougall here from Ray Robinson.
Yes, sir. As Kim's coming up to the mic, so just take a moment, as we've discussed in the budget process a little bit, we discussed a legislative services, and that by a lobbying firm. So Gray Robinson will bring to you a piggyback contract with the city of Oviedo on the 17th of November. Gray Robinson will be the firm that will take us through the next couple of years, if you so choose to, through the piggyback, and help us with our legislative agenda, as well as hopefully securing some additional funding. Again, that's one of the things that we're looking for is appropriations and or grants. So, Kim McDougall, Angela, if you want to.
Good afternoon, or evening. Thank you very much. And you do have indeed a beautiful city. I have to tell you, doing a little bit of research as I'm old school, I love one of your quick facts in the history of the city of Cocoa Beach. The Captain Tony Nelson from My Dream of Jeannie lived here. Did y'all grow up watching Gilligan's Island and My Dream of Jeannie when there were 3 channels in UHF and the rabbit ears? That's pretty cool. In fact, I never know, so that was very interesting. And so Andrew and I are going to tag team this presentation. And so Gray Robinson, we have 14 offices around the state of Florida. We're a lobby firm and a law firm. I'm not a lawyer, Andrew's not a lawyer, and Katie Fleury, who couldn't be here tonight, is not a lawyer. We're lobbyists. We have some lawyers and lobbyists, but it's awesome to have a law firm behind us. So if we need clarification on the sentence, or if we need help beyond what we can do, which we're pretty good at it, but every once in a while you just need a lawyer because someone puts another lawyer up against you, we have a whole firm. And we also have an office in DC, and local, city, county government, that's in our DNA. Gray Robinson was originally started in Orlando, and we've been in Orlando for a long time, and we've slowly grown out of Orlando. I work in the Tallahassee office, Angela works in the Tallahassee office, and Katie works in the Orlando office. And really, if you see on the slide, it says unrelenting, undeterred, unwavering. We like our clients to end up being our friends. We like to work with you. We like to win. We like to make sure that we do what you want. We're very flexible in way of work, how we work, making sure you get the information you need, the updates you need. We're very flexible. And I like to say that we have concierge services. We're available. We're accessible. We send information back. We don't ghost you. We help you. We work hand in hand throughout the legislative process. So the focus, and I think it's just you have your city, but it's also when you're going up some of these big behemoth issues, it's really great to have alliances and other stakeholder groups that work with you. So obviously we represent the Florida League of Cities as well, and some other cities. We represent the Florida Association of Counties. We're very much in tune, local control, local control, local control. We get your issues. And then we have connections. Like I said, we have 14 offices, and we have a commitment. Our firm, Dean Cannon, he's the CEO and president now. He's actually a former Speaker of the House. We have folks that worked in the Senate's office, folks that worked in the Speaker's office, and the House of Representatives, and it's really kind of cool. And I'll tell you a little bit of myself in a minute, but we have folks that work in Gray Robinson that were actually lobbied in different positions. And I think that makes you smarter as a lobbyist because you saw the good, the bad, the ugly when you were lobbied. So we know to be prepared to do our homework, and we work really well as a team. And I love my work family. I love Gray Robinson. And it's a gift because you may not have always been somewhere where you don't think your work family is like your family, but it's a really great place to work. We help each other out. And these are some successes that we've had for some cities, and we've sent in all the information so Robin has detailed information, our successes, our histories, a a little bit more information on who we are if you want additional information. And then here's your team, Kim, Angela, and Katie. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself, and I'm gonna pitch it to Angela to talk about Katie. So you see, served for 27 years in multiple leadership roles. So I worked 10 years for the Florida Legislature. I worked 17 years for the executive branch. I worked for Governor Bush. I worked for Senator Scott, for Governor Scott at that time. I don't know if I'm slow or fast, but it took me 27 years, and my last job with the state of Florida was Chief of Staff for Governor Rick Scott. And this is my 5th year out at Gray Robinson. So I was Legislative Affairs Director, Deputy Chief of Staff. I've had almost every single role there is in state government because I have a public servant's heart and I like helping people, and that's how you do it. But after 27 years, I thought, okay, it's time to go to the private sector. So this is my 5th year in the private sector. I love working for cities and counties and school districts and universities and colleges because we can always do better. So I love fighting the fight for what's right. So Angela, you want to introduce yourself and talk about Katie?
Good evening. As Kim mentioned, I'm Angela Dreswicki. Will be on the team hopefully with Kim for the city of Cocoa Beach. So although I'm relatively new to Gray Robinson, I'm not new to the legislative process. I've worked in the process for over a decade. I started my career working on a gubernatorial campaign, and then I quickly realized I should find a different career and do something else, and got into lobbying. But most recently I was with People, Smith & Matthews, and we were a small boutique firm, and we really specialized in local government representation and statewide associations. And in December of this past year, we actually merged with Gray Robinson, which has been a great fit. We already had shared a number of clients with them, and as I jokingly but really do say, we were already very well connected, and so this has just kind of given us more opportunities to work together. And I don't know what sorry, I might have hit something.
I think I might want to see if you're good.
Oh yeah, thank you. There I am. So I work on a number of policy issues, but my primary focus is really on appropriations. And that process, if you're familiar at all, it's very different than passing a policy bill during session, and that's kind of what I really kind of honed my practice. And again, I work on all issues, but if the city does decide to have some legislative priorities that are appropriations projects, I will probably more likely than not be the one that's working with your delegation and shepherding those through the process. Okay, so that's probably enough about me, and I will tell you about our Katie Fleury, who could not be here tonight, but will also be on the team. As Kim mentioned, she is in our Orlando office, and she has worked on several campaigns, and most recently she was Chief Legislative Aide to now Senator Broder, who's in the Central Florida area. She joined Gray Robinson in 2016, and she represents, like many of us, a variety of clients, many in the public sector. And one of the things I always brag on Katie about and always say is she has really great relationships with members of the House and Senate, their staff, and also key individuals in the governor's office, which I think is it's very, very helpful, as do we, but she's has some very strong relationships in there too, which I think is wonderful. Okay, our approach. So I don't want to read this entire slide to you, but our approach, it really will be tailored to your preference. So, we know no two cities are really the same, and so we will do and work however you would like. And that means we'll work with whatever representative from the city. So if it's Robin, who I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, or whomever you request us to work with, will help develop the legislative agenda and priorities for the 2023 legislative session. And then from there, we'll really kind of begin our work with meeting with legislative sponsors for appropriations projects, or if there's substantive policy issues, again, kind of getting together with other stakeholders, potential sponsors for the legislation, maybe the League of Cities, Association of Counties, folks like that. And then the last column that says tracking and analyzing state legislation, monitor and report on policies. Again, this is going to be tailored to your preference. Of course, during the session, you're probably going to hear from us a whole lot. We do send out weekly bill reports, and can provide updates, either a weekly call or as needed emails, and as things move quickly through the process, you'll obviously be hearing from us more and more probably as session progresses. Is that? That's it. I think that's it. But before I turn it back over, I want to just talk about kind of some things that are on the horizon over the next few months. So organizational session will be November 22nd. And so that's the first formal meeting of the legislative term where with the new presiding officers in the House and Senate. So that's going to be November 22nd. And just today, a special session was announced on property taxes. And so the governor, if you're familiar or may recall, the governor signed an executive order postponing property tax payments for residents severely affected by Hurricane Ian. And he also announced his intention for a special session specifically on property tax rebates for homeowners and business owners. And of course that call could be expanded, but right now we're looking at, I think we're told the week of December 5th, which will then lead into the next week, probably of the first interim committee week leading up to the 2023 legislative session. And then we'll go through the holidays, and in January, we'll have a couple committee weeks, a couple in February, and then with the start of session being March 7th for 60 days. So that's kind of what the next few months will look like.
And then part of that, this was all the strategy on offense, getting things done. But as you're familiar with the legislative process, a lot of what we do, especially for local governments, is defense. We play a lot of defense out there. So while we're proffering your agenda, you're also going to see bills that like, oh my God, where'd this come from? We also go and play defense, try to get opinions, try to change it, try to figure out why the sponsor did it is one example, or we're taking one example of how it happened in the city, making it statewide. So it's an offense-defense combination strategy that we use.
Happy to, if there's any questions.
I would like to hear from our Florida League of Cities past president.
Yeah, I've been carrying the ball for the commission on this for since I've been in office. I agree with you. It's a defensive strategy. You never know what it is that's going to come up that would be bad for us, and so it's really difficult to plan ahead or even identify issues ahead of time. You really need to be able to read that calendar and find out what's coming up. I also found like it's most beneficial to go up during committee week. You can actually get to meet with representatives during committee week. It's difficult because they're in committees, but when you can find them, they're not overloaded, they're not busy. Now, could you schedule meetings for them, for us?
Absolutely. If you want to do what sometimes they call it a fly-in day, where you come in the night before, we do a day of meetings, say maybe 2 nights, or come back after that night, and we do it not only with your delegation, but you see your delegation members here. So what we would do, depending on the bills that are filed, depending on the legislative agenda, we want you to meet with the folks that are on the committees that you're trying to get your agenda through. Because I
Right.
know that you know Representative Soros and Senator Mayfield, they're fantastic, and we're going to work with them. But I want to use your time wisely, targeted like, oh my gosh, it's an ugly bill. We need to go
Right.
talk to them, tell them why it's an issue, and it's very helpful when you come up there for a day. Angela and Katie will do the work, but if you care about it and willing to spend your time to come up there, then that gives them more reason to care about it.
Yeah, the financial reporting bill, I think, is going to be is pretty ugly.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it's coming back, right?
I think that may end up being the highest priority actually for the league this year.
Yep.
So that'd be a big concern. And I haven't even shared this with you guys, but the level of information required
lot.
for financial reporting would be substantially more than what we file now. Very detailed about your personal finances, and I think it's going to cause people to not run for public office, quite frankly.
Between now and you said it's gonna come back to us in the November 17th meeting for a decision?
That's right, it'll be presented to you as new business on November 17th, and we'll have the contract there with it at that point in time.
Do we have preliminary numbers as to what this would
Well, I don't,
potentially cost us?
I know that the city of Oviedo, I believe they had somewhere around 55,000 in their last contract, but I haven't seen the latest because, again, they were delayed because of
But we
hurricane.
don't have one we won't see one until November 17th.
Well, until the 17th, or I receive the piggyback from them, which is around the 7th of November when they take it before their commission or their council.
Did you also mention there's a possible grant for that?
So they assist us, Gray Robinsons will assist us in grants. Again, I've had the privilege in the past with other cities I believe in Oviedo is about 450-some thousand for Oviedo in the park. Mount Dora was probably somewhere around 4 million for our water projects. So again, those are the two that are jumping out. But they will assist in the grant writing, in submittal, and then also the connections. So it's been a positive process. And then a couple years ago in Mount Dora, we went through appropriations, received quite a bit of funding for our EOC, about $500,000 I think for our EOC, and I'm trying to think of the other appropriation. There was another line item. So again, those are items that they've assisted with during those cycles. So the return is fairly lucrative. It's just persistence in making sure that you know the project and that you find a project that fits your needs, and infrastructure is pretty much there. So just about any type of infrastructure, and then things like fighting for our short-term rights or short-term rentals and those types of things. It could be any other item that's a home rule issue that we usually put together a data sheet and take up before the different houses and Senate and meet with them.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic idea, because it's all about relationships up there. And we have a relationship with our state rep, kinda. I don't actually know if I don't think he's been to one of our meetings, but I wish he would have been, you know, but I don't understand why state reps don't come to meetings. Some do, I'm sure, but they should come more often. But you also have connections with other state reps, not just our state rep.
That's right.
And that's the most important thing, because one state rep isn't going to make the decision up there. It's getting in touch with a group and making that change. One vote doesn't make the difference. You need 20, 30 votes. You need a block to make that happen, so they can make changes, amendments to various bills and whatnot, and get it basically the direction that we want it to go, rather than whatever they want to do and all. So it's good that they know what we're thinking, and it's hard for us to do that. As Mike has been going up there, I was on that group with League of Cities just prior to Mike, and going up there once or twice a year, or even three or four times a year, isn't like being up there every month. Like you all will be, you have a presence there, and so that's. I think it'd just be a great conduit for our city to have that connection up there in Tallahassee.
Can I just respond one thing, Commissioner? Like when you guys target a grant that you're interested in, normally the way that we work is, okay, you want to go after getting rid of boats that are sitting out there in the water. Normally, whatever the grant is out there that you think you meet, what I like to do is before the agency opens it up, or we hear about it when they open it up, is we have a call with your staff and the agency staff to make sure that we understand what the application is requesting. That's where we have the greatest success, is doing the homework up front before you actually submit it. That works really well, because then you kind of find out what they're really targeting, what their priority is, and when they talk about certain numbers, you're like, okay, they really care about this one and this one, they're all important. But we set up those meetings and we're on those calls with you.
Excellent.
So I'm just trying to get a picture of how, like, practically how does this work? Do you as city manager direct them, and what kind of grants or what areas we want them to advocate for us? How does that work?
So when we bring you the agenda for the 17th, what I'll have on there is basically it says that the city commission during your January strategic plan will define the priorities in which you as a commission feel like we need to ask the Cray Robinson or go and fight for. Some of those may be appropriations, some of them may be grants, but it'll be based on your strategic process and your strategic plan. And then the city clerk was able to forward me a lot of the items that Commissioner Miller has fought for over the last few years. So I've already sent that information over to Gray Robinson, so they're aware of those things that you've been fighting for in the past years, and then again those things we've been fighting for this year. So you as a commission will set those priorities, and then we'll bring to you, myself as well as staff will bring to you some options and opportunities throughout the year in which they will also fight for. And it's a continual process, so we begin it now. It's critical for this time period to get started to hit the House early enough on that we can be effective this season and this session, but it doesn't stop. So once the session is over in May or June, then they'll come back out, give you a report in the summertime, and again, we will either request that they bring back some other options, or you as a commission will define the new priorities if those need to be redefined from last year's or from the prior year January session. It's a continual process in that respect, but it's definitely a cooperative partnership, and the fact that you define what we might need. Maybe it's infrastructure needs, maybe it's, you know, derelict boats, and the fact that we're looking at, you know, the rules governing that process by FWC versus the city, but we'll bring those back through the strategic process to Gray Robinson and invite them to be part of that strategic plan, at least to listen.
So this could, because I know we had that legislative session, like, usually it was in January or whatever, but you got like 2 seconds to list like 20 things, but this will be like a continuous.
Yes,
One
and
of those,
that session is important, but it's important to have your data ready. So what I've learned over the years, and again, great with Angela in the prior year with Peebles and Smith, we actually prepared, and Matthew, excuse me, we prepared data sheets. Basically went up with a 1 page. We defined 4 projects, half a page each. Picture was critical of something, and then some data. And we left that with them with our calling card, our business card, so that at least they had something to reference later. We just learned that you don't walk in and speak to them and expect them to remember everything. That's just not going to happen. But if they can go back and look at it, and they've got a phone number and they've got a name, then as they go through and look at bills, especially as you speak with the Ways or the Means and Ways House, or whoever you may be speaking with as far as the leads, then that really pushes us through. There were days we would see 20, 25 people. So it's a massive 3 minutes, and then you run to the next office and try to get another 3 minutes with the next member of the House or the Senate. But it's effective if you take your data sheets and you know what you're looking for. And again, you may not be successful the first year, but you just have to stay at it.
Thank you.
So, fortunately, we have this stellar grant writer, Wayne Caragino, and somehow on his own, he has got us some really big grants. But there could have been some that were, you know, in the could have got, didn't get, and that's where you guys come into play, where you could maybe help us strengthen what we wrote and lobby some people to maybe push it over the finish line. I mean, we're talking football season. So, and then on appropriations and laws coming about that are going to affect the citizenry of Cocoa Beach, maybe we, you know, it wasn't palatable to a lot of people, and maybe we would have won it on our own, but if it was going to get down to the, you know, it's a gray area, you might win, you might lose. I think what I'm hearing is having you guys on board give us, you know, a little like, you know, you have in football spreads, you know, you can create a bigger spread where we have a better chance of winning by having you guys on board.
That's right. So while you go up there, and like I said, it's important to go up there and make your own ask. We're your echo chamber. We're up there all the time. And boots on the ground. We know there were people, it's like most of the legislators I know, most people are running for office. We've gone and knocked on doors. We've met the people. We've had a lot of people running. So it's not like, oh, who's going to be here next session, right? Because you had redistricting. So a lot of names and faces are going to change. Every 2 years we do that. We've been meeting those people along the way.
Yeah, but like what the city manager said is you guys helped them get a $500,000 grant, which is basically, if you go back to time value of money back in those days, if they were paying you $50,000 a year, that's $10,000 worth of your, 10 years worth of your salary. But they might have got that, you know, scratched through and got that without you guys. But having you guys actually is a little push forward, is what I'm hearing.
That's right. And I'm hoping there's a lot pushed forward, and it's also we would represent the executive and the legislative branch. So even after a session, the legislature does their budget, we go fight. Obviously, I know the governor's office very well, and Chris Spencer, who's Governor DeSantis' budget director, he was at Ray Robinson before he went back on the inside. So he's Governor DeSantis' budget director. But it's not just getting it in the budget; it's getting it through the governor's office and not getting vetoed.
So, city manager, this would be a 1-year contract is what we would be looking at?
So I believe at this point in time, the previous contracts were 3 years with 2 1 years after that. Again, I haven't seen the current one, but I'm assuming it's very similar to what's been there previously. But you have all your normal term restrictions, and the city attorney will look at that before we're finished.
performance-based?
I don't, again, it wasn't in the past, it was just basically a
Well, I
consultant
mean,
services.
I mean, if we go through a whole year and we decide, well, I'm not trying to say anything bad about you guys, but we say, good, well, that wasn't worth it. We don't get an opt-out and we're stuck with a 3-year contract?
No, you have, there's a term limits in there, I mean, there's usually an out clause, and the city attorney usually makes sure that that's there, and it's written in there, as well as Gray Robinson, so that's typically written in there. I just don't have it right now to read, so I couldn't tell you what it's in there right now, but it used to be in the
Well,
prior contract.
I'd like, you know, I'm only one commissioner, but I would like it to be performance-based where we get reports on how they're helping us and, you know.
You
so
will-
we
you will
know
have
after-
that.
We know after the first year before we go into the second year that they actually did some good for us.
You actually see that, so during legislative sessions, excuse me.
No, I want it right up to me. I don't want to have to follow the news beat
You will
in
receive-
Tallahassee to try to figure out what they did good and what they didn't do.
You will receive that by email from them. So it will be a weekly and sometimes daily, and you will not be able to keep up with it in some respects because there's so much data they are sending to you as to what's happening, when it's happening. But we can write that in there. Within a piggyback, we'll have to look at the addendum that would have to go with that, I would think, city attorney.
I would like to see something similar to what we get from our city attorney, which is a quarterly report.
Okay.
Okay, which synopsizes what they did in the last quarter. And, you know,
I would, if I could just add, some of what we do, we don't put in writing. For obvious reasons, a lot of what we do put in writing, but we don't wanna give away
well, if you
the.
send us an email, it's public record.
Yeah, you're right, exactly, and we're very careful what we put in writing, we're happy to give any reports, and making sure that you get all the information you need, and like Robin said, you're gonna get a lot of information, but then probably can say who we met with, the topic of the discussion, without going into the details of it.
Right, but I would, do you guys, is it out of your realm to give quarterly reports on your, what you did?
I guess we can do that because we give weekly during session and committee weeks. You're going to get weekly, and we can summarize those up into quarterly. That's not a problem. We're happy to do that. And then normally what we do.
Or
in
if
our
you wanna do it monthly, if it's too burdensome to try to think back quarterly.
We'll do whatever y'all want. And normally what we do is you have a 3-year contract, and there's a 30-day opt-out. If you get mad at us, you can fire us in 30 days. And if we get mad at you, we can fire you in 30 days. Never happens, but it has to be fair. But so yeah, it's a 3-year contract, but you can opt out if the 30 days anytime.
Is there,
It hasn't happened. Hopefully it won't happen here.
is there a penalty for opting out?
No.
Thank you.
Here's the situation that I've experienced. If you're gonna be successful, somebody has to go to Tallahassee, and you've gotta meet with them up there, and sometimes we don't even know what the issues are gonna be. We don't have the budget for flying up there, so it's a 3-day commitment. It takes 1 day to drive up there, stay overnight. Hopefully you get some meetings done, stay overnight, and then drive back next. So it's a 3-day grind. And I've done that, but I've cleverly gotten the Space Coast League of Cities to pay for that on our behalf. But there's so much value in having somebody up there to save you that trip later on when there's something. Somebody needs to go and remind a representative that a vote's coming up and we're counting on them. And you've got to have somebody in Tallahassee. That's really what I've been struggling with the last couple of years.
And if there's any way, a commissioner going along is at least one commissioner attending is critical. You are an elected official of this body, so it's important to be there. But I would also encourage, if you're going for infrastructure, and it's utilities or it's stormwater, that you take the expert on the city staff. But it does help. It can be a team effort that we can really be very successful. We walked away with direct contacts from FDEP and FDOT, and we have those here, but these were their contacts for our money, our financials, so for the appropriations, and it was one-on-one conversations for the next few months. So it is critical, and it's a big piece of what any city could do, but we would have to identify through your strategic process what your priorities are. And determine what those might be going forward.
Thank you.
Kim, thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I'm definitely in favor, and Commissioner Miller, thank you very much for holding that torch for so many years. I too have gone up there, and I got to tell you, I guess after a decade, I'm a little more cynical it just seems, we just get lip service. We go up there, and I distinctly called our state reps about the Airbnb issue. Was told, yeah, we'll take it into consideration. They vote the other way. Well, I called them the next day, and like, yeah, well, you know, the party line is that they're gonna go with it. So sorry. So I guess from my standpoint, I'm very much in favor of this. Can you maybe explain to our taxpayers and residents what your value proposition is? What, you know, because obviously I think it's immensely important to have somebody that's there 24/7.
I think, number one, the ROI, if you go after appropriations. Number two, with your echo chamber, rather than just having a voice up there when you travel to go speak to members, we're up there all the time. We track legislation. We know you may read about some legislation. There's a lot more legislation out there that may impact you don't know about. So we tell you things that are happening. We go and connect with the right people. But just because we have a meeting, full disclosure, if you go in and someone says, hey, leadership wants us to vote this way, we're going to have conversations. Maybe we can do an amendment. Even on the few bills that have that, and because of our relationships and because we're proffering for you and we're saying this is why it's important to them, then maybe we can do an amendment with the exact same thing. We're not promising we're going to go up there and everything we ask for we're going to get.
No, understood.
Yeah.
But
I'm just always
a seat at the table is better than no seat at the table.
If you're not at
as far
the
as
table,
I'm
you're on the
concerned.
menu. I mean, that's the way.
Yeah, and so I had a conversation with my colleague in Satellite Beach, Dominic Montanaro, also very involved in the League of Cities, and he had a meeting with Senator Mayfield, and I guess the push or the focus is one of the top priorities is affordable housing, which is kind of an oxymoron in a beach community. I mean, the land values are so crazy right now here, the property values are insane. Which the irony of that is really driven by the Airbnb problem. I mean, when you have houses renting for $400 a night, you take out an entire pool of inventory of affordable housing for families that want to come here, because you're running a hotel and you're running a business, and that house now has an ROI that you can't get if you just bought, you know, an average size home that rented. You know, you could go over the bridge right now and rent a really nice home for $2,500. There are 12 homes as of yesterday I looked at in Cocoa Beach for rent, and I think the cheapest house was nearing $3,500, and it was nothing great, guys. It wasn't on the water. It was nothing great. So, you know, maybe you could gently remind them there's consequences. And the other thing he told me was they think the solution to this is to increase the density. Build up.
Yeah.
And they're talking about taking away that home rule option for us, which is a concern for us. But they're talking about only putting it in the commercial areas. So increasing the density in the commercial area. So it might be another battle that we have. But again, you know, sometimes their actions have consequences that they don't realize, and I'm happy to show you the math on that. I mean, when you have a house that rents for, you know, $400 a day versus $3,000 or $2,500 a month, it's a big price differential when somebody's trying to buy something here. So, thank you.
That's
All right.
it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I look forward to your proposal. I'm very much interested in pursuing this.
We need somebody in Tallahassee.
Need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comments on any items not on the agenda? Okay. Staff reports?
I think at this time, Mayor, we'll bring back to you an update on Hurricane Ian. We are finalizing our collection at this point in time. So I believe Karen has recently sent out an email that states, I just want to make sure I'm correct here. The Crowder Golf and Tetra Tech have informed us that they'll finalize the cleanup of the city tomorrow by the end of the day. And after that, we're encouraging anyone who has green trash or green debris, that means it was not probably here from Hurricane Ian. It's been freshly cut. That needs to be in a waste management container, and we'll continue to educate the public on that going forward. And then we'll bring you back an after-action report once we finish up the information from Crowder, Gulf, and Tetra Tech, and as well as the county. We did meet with them today, EOC. They gave us a little bit more information in reference to categories A and B and the entire process of a hurricane and where we're at within the city and the county. So we hope to bring that back in the middle of November, probably, by the time we get to a point where we're ready to present that information.
Great. All right.
Thank you. Yes.
You have a question?
Which
You had something else you were gonna bring up on your,
the debris? I'll be out of town, so I don't remember. I'm sorry. I apologize. I usually write them down.
the agenda item for the November 3rd?
I still have to speak with the attorney on that, so I'm not quite ready for that one, sir. So, and I'll be out of town beginning tomorrow until Monday the 31st.
When that would be too late to create the agenda item.
No, I can add agenda items right up until the time that we present to you. So I'll have a conversation with her in the meantime. Yeah.
Should we air it tonight just to get to pierce the cloud?
I think it needs to be between the city attorney and myself first.
Yeah, we have an agenda item that's gonna be coming up on the next meeting. Would you wanna talk about the third meeting out, or let's just move on? I don't understand.
No, I had a meeting with the city manager, and she said she was gonna divulge it tonight, and she's not.
I think she divulged it to each of us at this point,
No,
individually.
it's another item, but I need to work with the city attorney, so I just haven't had a chance yet to finish that. I had 2 meetings earlier today, but they were on short-term rental, styrofoam or conversations, styrofoam and, I'm trying to think what the other one, Becky, we spoke about. Smoking in parks, and so we've been working on some other items, so I just had not
Okay,
reached that.
I'm just saying, it basically is a non-issue, but it's still floating around in cyberspace as it might be, so.
Okay,
I just wanted to put it to bed and not have to worry about it.
All right, brings us to city attorney.
nothing tonight.
Hey, Ms. Bowes, the only question I had is, how are we doing, what's the progress on our Airbnb ordinances or regulations?
I'm working with Randy
Okay.
on that, and we've been working together, and
I know it's
he has
it's a
them.
lot, and I'm just trying to get a ballpark timeline. It's at the first and forefront of a lot of our residents' concerns.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Randy Stevenson, Development Services Director. Your question was about our monitoring of the Airbnb and
No,
registration.
We were gonna craft, yeah.
Right. We have finally made some progress. We have staff training next Tuesday. They're in process of scrubbing the data. I've seen the map. It takes about 2 weeks for the entire data to be scrubbed. If you're familiar with how these sites operate, you can never get an address until you register. So they have a 3 or 4 prong process for identifying geographically that these are Airbnbs. Letters should start going out, I would say, by the middle of November for registration purposes. So we are pursuing that hot and heavy right now.
And I think the mayor's referring to the actual ordinance that the city attorney's working on in reference to that. But I do know that there's been emails that have been exchanged
Yes.
between the two of them.
All right, thank you. City commission reports. Commissioner Tomlin?
Yes, I've got a couple things. We have Friday Fest tomorrow night. It's going to be pretty packed. Both blocks on Minutemen will be full of vendors. Of course, we'll have the food trucks in the City Hall parking lot. And so that should be good. It'll be nice and cool out there tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Also, Saturday night, Kiwanis is putting on a bingo here at the 19th hole. I'm calling numbers. And also there's a silent auction and auction for other prizes and whatnot for that event. So come on out. It'll be a good time, and get involved with your community. I mean, you are here, so come on up.
Commissioner Willis?
I have nothing.
Vice Mayor?
If the dates are finalized for the boat parade and the Christmas parade, I haven't seen them yet, but I surmise what they might be. Can we publish those for planning purposes, please?
Yes, sir. And I don't have them right now with me, but I will definitely make sure they get published.
Commissioner Miller?
I only comment about the lobbying in Tallahassee. Yeah, it took Mark Ryan 10 years to get a no smoking bill passed. So, I mean, it's really difficult. And he lived up in Tallahassee, had a second home up there, so he could so I think having somebody there is tremendous value. But, and remember, we got a $12 million gift last year, so we probably need that down a project like that would value us, and that's what we need to push. I think that's it.
Thank you. In the interest of brevity, I'll reserve the next meeting.
Well, I'll take your 3 minutes. I've got to go back first for Commissioner Williams. The 3rd is our street parade, December 3rd.
Say again.
December 3rd would be the street parade.
Christmas parade?
Christmas parade, street parade, yeah, street Christmas parade. Because we have 2 parades. We have a boat parade and a street parade. So the street parade's December 3rd, along with Winterfest. And that's another thing I need to discuss with the city as far as, I don't talk about that behind the scenes.
So we've had issues before having the street parade and the boat parade on the same day, so.
No. The boat parade's the following week. Winterfest and the street parade are the 3rd.
All I'm saying is, the boat parade date needs to be solidified because a lot of people like to have gatherings in their residences to watch the boat parade.
Yeah, our leisure services director,
Right, but
I'm sure has that
we need to
information.
put out a CBNN that says the street parade's the 3rd and the boat parade's the 10th, so that people can plan accordingly.
Yeah.
That's it? Those are the dates, 12/3, 12/10, there you go.
And normally from a Facebook and a CBNN, again, we can put the dates out early, but it usually is just more beneficial when you're social media, your dates as you get closer, but we'll be glad to start putting those out a little closer to 60 days in advance. That's not a problem.
We'll put it out and we'll still get asked.
Yeah, but we'll be
I
glad
can
to do that, no
guarantee
worries. Yeah.
We've been posting
I
the
think
Winterfest stuff
that's
already.
a lot of what I think the issue is. Usually on Facebook and CBNN, we kind of put a little closer to the dates, but I'm sure it's on the website already.
Yeah.
So.
All right. City Attorney, would you read the consent agenda, please?
Yes, sir. This is the consent agenda. Item 1, approve the August 23rd, 2022 Commission meeting minutes. Representative, City Clerk Department recommendation approved. Item 2, approve piggybacking off the Brevard County Concrete Surfaces contract, utilizing Garcia Civil Contractors, LLC, to remove and replace the concrete sidewalk on the west side of South Brevard Avenue between 4th Street South and 8th Street South in the amount of $185,400.02. This is a budgeted item. Representative Robert Torres, Public Works Director, recommendation approved. Item 3, approve resolution number 2022-18 reflecting the City of Cocoa Beach's 2022 Mobility Week in Brevard County. Mobility Week is a cooperative effort by the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, and its partner agencies to promote awareness of safe, multimodal transportation choices by hosting an annual collection of outreach events. Representative Jared Francis, PE, Assistant Public Works Director. Recommendation approved. Item 4, approve resolution number 2022-17, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Cocoa Beach, Florida, amending resolution number 2022-16, a master resolution for fees, to change fees in Exhibit 6, golf course fees, gym fees, pool, pavilion, and ball field fees. The fees represented are only for gym fees, pool fees, pavilion fees, and ball fields fees. providing for amendment of fees, incorporation of recitals, and providing for an effective date. Representative Laird McLean, Leisure Services Director, recommendation approved. Item 5, approve the third amendment to the Stormwater Education and Outreach Interlocal Agreement with Brevard County and the following municipalities: Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, Cocoa, Indian Harbor Beach, Malabar, Melbourne, Grant, Valkyria, and West Melbourne. This amendment adjusts the municipal contribution amounts for education and outreach activities paid to Brevard County. Cocoa Beach is an operator of a municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, which is a publicly owned conveyance or system of conveyances used for collecting or conveying stormwater that discharges to the surface waters of the state. This designation means that the city is regulated by a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permit. As part of the permit, the city is required to perform education and outreach activities which are contracted and coordinates with Brevard County. The county's costs for performing the work have increased. This is a budgeted expense. Representative Jared Francis, PE, Assistant Public Work Director. Walker Dawson, PE, Stormwater Utility Manager. Recommendation approved.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Do you have a motion?
One quick question for the city manager, and a head nod from Bob Torres. The sidewalk on the west side of Brevard Avenue, that piggyback includes that one little piece on Colonial?
No, we'll do that in-house.
Okay. But I didn't see, there's no line item on the budget for that, but it's not big enough to actually create a line
I
item.
mean, we could use that, I mean, I had to talk to the city manager about it, but it'll get done.
So there's a budget for sidewalk work, so we'll utilize that money or do it in-house between the two of them. So that's separate from this particular
Okay,
budget.
well, if he says he's gonna do it in-house, which is, an issue. Thank you.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. City Attorney, would you read item J1, new business?
Yes, item 1, authorize piggybacking off the contract between Osceola County and ZHA Incorporated for facility construction consulting services on the design build selections for City Hall. Representative Robin R. Hayes, City Manager. Wayne Caragino, Assistant to City Manager, Project Manager. Recommendation authorize.
So ZHA is here, so Robert Utsey is here. And really for this particular one, they would be a third party that would be part of the process in which the city goes about selecting one of the final bids. There were 5 presented, and then they follow us through the process and assist in looking at information like the cost of the material, the backlog, is it reasonable, or anything else from their professional experience they feel like they need to forewarn the city and to make us aware of something. So it's
Move to
just-
authorize piggybacking of contract as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, public comment? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. City Attorney, item J2.
Okay, item 2, consider the temporary suspension of building permit fees for permits associated with the repair, rebuild, or replacement on a like-for-like basis of roofs, fences, and docks that can be proven to have been damaged or destroyed because of the effects of Hurricane Ian. Representative Robin R. Hayes, City Manager. Randy Stevenson, Development Services Director. Recommendation consider.
It's exactly as it is, so we can help out those that may
Pretty
have to replace.
self-explanatory. I know other cities have done that. We've been asked by residents.
We've done
about this.
this.
Yeah, we've done it
Yeah,
before.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one little piece of discussion. And says that can be proven to have been damaged or destroyed. Who's gonna be the judge of what's proof and what's not proof?
Typically, items that have been turned into the insurance company would be, that information would be turned in as part of the process.
Yeah,
It's
but
been-
if my insurance deductible is 5% or 10% of the value of my home, and I have $2,000-3,000 worth of storm-related damage, I'm not gonna risk my insurance rate going up, and I won't get anything anyway because my deductible.
Sure, but you can probably have a picture or two and just come in and speak with
Yeah.
us. Again, there just needs to be
Well,
a
I'm just saying
reasonableness.
I would hope that this.
we're not gonna have like this really stringent burden of proof. If it's obvious that this is old damage that's never been taken care of, okay,
That is correct.
got it. But if it's in the gray area, I'd give them the benefit of the doubt.
That is correct. We know that, again, the gentleman that very just kind of spoke out in an email, which he was very polite and just said, hey, I've lost my dock. Several others have. I think he said 7 to 9 people had lost their dock. Will you consider suspending the fees? Yes. You know, so I think you come in and you tell us you're on that, you know, we know you're on that street because you're going to give us your address. You're going to tell us you lost your dock. Again, it's a pretty simple process. We know the roofs that were pretty much affected. I mean, based on the fact that we were all here during the storm and fire department went out and put canopies on houses where we lost roofs because we were searching and making sure everyone was okay. So again, if someone tells us that and, you know, within reason, I think that we have to be reasonable. But, you know, just have to be reasonable. But typically you do have at least, even if you didn't have an insurance claim, you've got a picture, you've got something that said it happened at that time period.
So there's docks that were destroyed years ago that only have poles sticking up now. Okay? I don't think that those people are gonna come in and say, the storm took up my dock and I want you to forgive me $130 for a permit, that haven't been able to afford to redo their docks, and the prices have gone through the roof on lumber and everything. So I don't think we're gonna have an issue to us.
I don't think we will either, so I mean, we'll go through and we'll see. I suspect we might have less than a dozen submittals. I
But
just
the,
don't suspect there'll be a lot.
Brevard County Property Appraisers website has fairly recent pictures compared to Google Earth, and you can always look at that.
Well, and we have the advantage too. I think our PD has been out in the boats. They've seen a lot of the docks. Randy and his folks have been out. Again, that was the assessment the day after the storm. So Sal's been out. So I think we've covered most of that.
Yeah, and I got a couple things to say. Yeah, you just said we're not going to nitpick, so we're not going to nitpick.
Okay. Good.
Right, and it's $130, and from my perspective, hey, I'd much rather have these docks that are in disrepair fixed. If it, you know, if they don't pay the fee, they're still got to get a permit. They still got to get a permit for these things. They just don't have a fee for it. And let's move on. My concern though is this is on the consent agenda,
No.
and if you wanted to pull it,
It's on new
No,
business.
oh, I'm
it's
sorry,
It's on
I'm
new
sorry, it's
business.
not. And but it's yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean that. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense to do it.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that when it says must be proven, what is the burden of proof? And I wanted to clarify that, and I think we did that.
Good. All right.
So it's been moved and seconded.
All right.
No
Mr.
public
Mayor.
comment?
Yeah. As a matter of disclosure, I would benefit from this, but I've got videos of the waves breaking my dock apart. But if you want me to pay the fee, I will do that.
Let me give you a little tip. Don't file an insurance claim.
No, well, it's not insurable.
Unless you want to get canceled.
Yeah, Doc, you're on
Docks
your
are
own.
not.
They're
It's an
not
exterior
insured.
structure.
They're just looking to cancel people right now. All right, Mr. Anderson, sorry.
Rick Anderson, 1800 Minutemen Causeway. The only concern I have is with the wording like for like. I would want to make sure that anything is built to replace something that was structurally okay 30 or 40 years ago when it was built the first time. I'd want to make sure that it was built to standards of today. So I don't know if there's any provision in place to make sure that that's the case, but I do have some concern with that.
Can I address that? So like for like, if they had a 10 by 20 foot dock and they want to build it to the current, to get their permit, they got to build it to the current codes. But like for like, if it used to be where it got covered up by the high canal level every year, and then want to raise it 16 inches so it won't get covered up by the high water, I would still consider that like for like. So hopefully that won't be an issue either as far as.
Again, I think we have to be reasonable, and again, there's also the challenge when you're in the water and you're building a dock, it has to be in the same general location because it's already been platted or surveyed there. So again, if we're talking docks, there's probably a few other things we'll look at, but yes, I mean, I think Randy and them already, when they look at docks now or seawalls, we wanna make sure we bring them up to code. That's a requirement.
And
But like for like means that you're not putting a 40-foot in there versus a 20-foot when the 20-foot was what was
But
approved.
if we wanted to raise it 16 inches,
Right.
that would still be like for like.
All right. I think we've hashed this out. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving right along, City Attorney, J3.
Okay, item 3, consider the relinquishment of interest in a 5-foot wide public utility easement located along the northern property line of Lot 10, Block 1, Indian Creek Estates as recorded in Plat Book 11, page 58. Pursuant to Section 6.10 of the City Charter, the relinquishment of this interest requires a unanimous vote of the City Commission. The 5-foot wide utility easement has never been used to locate utilities and is located under a home that was built in 1958 with an easement running under the home. The property owner wishes to demolish the existing home and build a new home in approximately the same location. And this was added 10/18/22. Representative Robin Hayes, City Manager, Randy Stevenson, Development Services. Recommendation approved.
I move to relinquish the public utility easement as read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, I had actually a legal question. Do we need to get a release from FP&L before we do this?
No, they did a locate and there's nothing in there,
All right.
so that's okay, as long as it's not being used.
So we can.
So we do
when
not
this,
need to
we
do
can
that.
release it.
It's
We have
underneath the-
control over
It's
those
underneath the
easements.
current house.
Yeah, so.
Doesn't mean there's not a line. They may want it for a line. I mean, but that's okay.
Well, the
It's our
city,
easement.
the city has the control over it.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to check with the cable company or anything, we just have to make sure there's nothing in there.
Commissioner Randy Stevenson, Director of Development Services. Commissioner Miller, the only thing that will remain in place is you'll see that the pole is actually on the other property right here. There is a guide wire, and that will remain in a small easement there about 7 feet, so that will be taken care of. The termination of FP&L's line through there is that pole.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks,
Randy, I had another question. The reason I asked for the site plan, and this has me concerned, because I looked at the site plan that they submitted. They're expanding their house into an AE flood zone. Is that a concern? Can they fill in an AE flood zone?
When we get the plans, that will be gone through. They will certainly have, I think it's an AE without a signed elevation. So we'll look at that as well as the area around it. They'll have to submit some stormwater plans because,
Right.
you know, we look at stormwater even for single-family residential.
Because that part of the city is very low to begin with.
Yes.
I noticed on their site plan, they're raising the floor elevation a little less than 3 inches.
That's a site plan.
Pretty low,
That's-
but the
that's
fact
not
that
the
they're
permit yet,
expanding
so-
into an AE flood zone gives me concern. I don't have a problem with us releasing the easement, but I hope we take a close look at
Well,
that.
these are things that we'll take a look at and consult with them because they've got to understand, we're talking about insurance right now. If you're going to build in a flood zone and we have an 18-inch minimum to build up and retain your water on site, all those things will be looked at as part of the permit. And again, I appreciate the consideration tonight. We're trying to clear up a little small legal matter so they can rebuild.
All right, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, 5-0. Public comments on any items not on the agenda?
Should that have been voiced?